Hello, hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Skeptics and Seekers Sunday Sermon. And we are here with some friends. So this is 4S. I'm David Johnson and friends. We have already gotten started for the second time because the first time didn't work out so well. We are going to talk today about demonology. And we pulled together some very usual suspects. We've got Sarah, say hi.
Hi, heathens.
Okay, and we've got Matt.
Good day, mates.
We've got Brian with a Y.
Thanks for having me back, David.
There are rumors that he may not be dressed. I started those rumors. And we actually have Andrew. I don't know that he will be in here much. I just saw him pop up. Matthew will be watching out to see if Andrew has anything to say, and you'll have to figure out your mute buttons and all of that. But that is the that is the cast of critters that we have today. I've done a couple of shows now on demons in Sunday sermon. Let me tell you a little bit about how I choose the sermons that I do every week. Most of it is kind of random. Some of it is based on what we're talking about over at Red Letters. And if there's a particular topic that I think, a deeper dive would be nice to have, then I might find a sermon on that subject. But most of the time, I'm looking for something else, or I'm looking for a particular personality, or I'm looking for a denomination that I haven't heard from. And demons just come up. They just come up. It's a part of Christianity. Most denominations have some story about demons. Some denominations talk about them a lot. I pass up all kinds of sermons every week that are on demons or prayer or miracles, or these things that churches like to talk about. So I'm trying to find things that are a little bit more interesting. But sometimes, you just have to take what bubbles up to the top. And so twice in our run, we have done shows on demons. And I wanted to take a moment to reflect on that. Last week, I took a moment to reflect on some of the other topics that we've talked about. Today, we're going to devote it completely to demons. And even though there will not be a sermon per se, there will be a sermon that we will be working off of a little bit. I've got some sound clips for that. And so today, expect a little bit of 4S, a little bit of BSC, a little bit of Red Letters as we maybe talk about Jesus perspective, and a little bit of traditional SNS. Let's see what happens. I want to start off with a little bit of an opening to kind of get the ball rolling. Now, I always give everyone a chance to make an opening statement. It's one of two times that you get on one of my shows where you can go uninterrupted. Everything else is fair game. So if you folks do not have something, I would give you a chance to think of your thing that you would like to say uninterrupted, that we might talk about a little bit more as the show progresses. I want to talk about our experiences because we were all Christians at one point, at various levels, various denominations, various parts of the world. And so I want to talk about our experiences and what we were taught about demons. It's interesting week after week listening to what preachers say about demons, and it's all a little bit different. What were we taught? What did we understand the truth on demons to be? I want to explore that. I want to explore whether or not we found the doctrine on demons to be coherent. Or is that something that we only started thinking of as incoherent once we left? If incoherent, can we take the doctrinal bits that we know and form a coherent doctrine on demons? And if we can't, can we just create from whole cloth a coherent doctrine on demons? Spoiler alert, I have spent some time thinking about this. I can't do it. But with the help of some of my fine furry friends, who knows? Maybe Maybe it is possible. And I also want to listen to our pastor friend. But I think before I begin my opening comment, I want to start with the missing man, Darren, who would have had a very interesting perspective because he did not grow up in the church. He has never been a Christian, never been a believer, always been an outsider. And so it's an excellent opportunity for Christians to hear what true outsiders think of their teachings on demons. And so, Brian, if you've got that queued up, let's hear Darren's opening statement.
Sure. This reading is from the book of Darren. Imagine, if you will, that one of your friends is telling you that leprechauns can and will sprinkle magical dust on you that will make you do whatever they want. You look at them, expecting them to be smiling and joking, instead finding out they are dead serious. You feel concerned about their sanity, whether someone so delusional should be allowed to vote, and feel like you should be slowly backing away from them. Then you look around and realize the majority of the country is taking them seriously. It leads to a surreal and terrifying experience. On the bright side, you aren't really surprised that they are also trying to overthrow the government, because the Republican Party found it easier to just lie to their base rather than try to come up with policy, or that the policies they do come up with seem to have the intention of being as cruel as possible. When you have no real method of distinguishing fact from fiction, those are the natural outcomes. This is the word of the Darren.
Praise be to.
Amen.
Anyway, see, I did church at a church that did the readings that way. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It's a call and answer response. It almost non-ironically came out of me. So, done it so many
Habits.
times.
Pavlov was correct and remains so.
There were a couple of things from Darren's comment that that struck me. In fact, can I get you to read the very last line, the very last sentence again, Brian?
Sure. Yeah, I think
after his
it's a
political
powerful
rant.
It's a powerful ending line. When you have no real method of distinguishing fact from fiction, these are the natural outcomes.
Right. This is a thing that strikes me about the doctrine of demons. It is one of those Christian doctrines where there is not even really an attempt at presenting some type of evidence. It's just all fantasy. There is no way that any Christian can distinguish whether a preacher is giving fact from fiction. There's no way for any Christian to know fact from fiction. And yet Christians believe that they know things about demons. And when preachers talk, Christians nod as if they expect that person to know things about demons. And there is something to be said for having a worldview that allows you to distinguish fantasy from fiction, fantasy from fact. And this is one of those places where I think the Christian religion and the Christian epistemology falls well short. There's simply no way when a person starts talking about demons to distinguish what is real and what is not. He had a line there when he realizes that they're serious. He wants to back away slowly. And then when he realizes that most of the people around him does take it seriously, it terrifies him. It is terrifying. The doctrine of demon is terrifying, but Christians, hear me. It's not terrifying for the reasons that you think it is. We're not terrified of your demons. We're not terrified of the consequences that you think. It's terrifying and surreal that so many people that we know and love take this seriously. I am afraid for you. I am worried for the state of the world. I am worried for the state of the future. That's what terrifies me. It does not give me some kind of wake-up call for my sinful condition. I nod. I might make sympathetic noises because, believe it or not, in my real life, I will go a long ways to avoid confrontation. Your friends who know you and love you, who aren't Christians, might also nod and make sympathetic noises. I assure you, they feel the same way about it as I do. They really don't know how to think of you. And in this area, they would simply rather you not talk about it because they don't want to think less of you. And it's almost impossible not to do it. So that's kind of my starting point. There are two people that I put in front of me when I think about this subject. There's the person who goes on about demons, and then there's the person who goes on about being abducted by aliens. Here's the cold hard truth of it. Not being polemical, I have more respect for the person who believes they've been abducted by aliens. That one actually makes more sense to me. Who has something to say?
You go first, Sarah.
I think you just volunteered. Everyone else just took a step back.
Mhm.
I'll go last in this order.
Is this Andrew who's just joined us?
It is. Ghost of Andrew. I
Yes,
killed him
yes,
a few
indeed.
minutes ago.
Ghost
Sorry,
of
went
Andrew.
back on mute. So yeah, I'm here. I'll be in and out, but I am here.
Okay. So you're going, Matthew?
Well, okay, I'll go for it. I'm intrigued though, David, about your scale between the demon person and the alien person. You know, you say more respect, but I'm wondering how much more is it? Diddly much more, or is it a lot more? But anyway, that's probably something for now. I have so many anecdotes and thoughts from my younger Christian years on this subject. And none of them, looking back, paint my former belief in a way that I look favorably on it now that neither am out. And it's a really peculiar place to be. And you mentioned Darren earlier. And Andrew and I have had the pleasure of Darren a few times on Still Unbelievable, and I really appreciate Darren's input for the reasons that you said. He's never been there. He's never been in that soup. And so he's never been part of that. And so he comes with a different perspective when I have conversations. He asks Andrew and myself some quite pointed and challenging questions that, dare I say, I probably haven't even asked myself. So voices like Darren's are very valuable in this kind of conversation, because they do bring a perspective that those of us who've been in that fog of belief haven't thought to ask themselves. So we need more Darrens is basically what I'm saying. But I think probably the story to go with, the example which I think best portrays the ridiculousness of this whole theology, which it just basically echoes what you've been saying, David, is many years ago, I think I was an engaged young man then. So we're talking around about 30 years ago. Now, I got invited by the church that I was part of to preach in an evening service, because they saw potential in me as a young Christian man and maybe give me chances to preach. And when somebody of my young 20-something age was given that kind of opportunity, it's normally in a safe place in a service that's not going to have a lot of people. So if you're going to have any ridiculous impact, it's going to affect the least amount of people, but there's certainly a support structure in place there. So there I was, all lined up to preach my first sermon. And in the week leading up to that, I lost my job. And the job that I just started, I was still in my probationary period. So I was still within the first 3 months. And obviously, if you're in a job and it's a probationary period, they can decide, you know what, actually, it's not working out with this employee. We'll just let them go. And it literally is it's out the door. That's what happens when you're on your probationary period. So I was still on my probationary period, and in the week leading up to this, they decided it wasn't going to work out, and so I lost my job. And it obviously completely changed the way my mind was for the rest of that week. And meeting somebody, I can't remember whether it was before or after I preached, the exact time frame really isn't that important, but somebody said to me, when I heard the news, Matthew, I was really sure that it was an attack. And then I found out that you were preaching Sunday evening, and then I knew it was an attack. And it's looking back, of course, I approved of that comment, and I thought, okay, yeah, it wasn't on my radar, but yeah, okay, that makes sense. But there are so many questions. How do you know? How does this happen? What's the communication structure between demons like? How do they get to the person who actually makes the decision that it's me who needs to fail my probation? What about the timing of me being in my probation at that time? Did demons have a role in that as well? Which then takes you all the way back to when I started the job. Who was in charge then when I started the job before I knew I was doing the preaching thing? And all these questions come out and you realize it's incoherent. Really, there's nothing about that comment that actually makes any sense once you start pulling at all the threads of what actually had to come together, what actually had to be coordinated for that event to happen. And sometimes, you know what, guys? Shit happens.
No.
It's the demon
And
of shit.
have you ever noticed the big super loophole in all this, which is exactly what you've experienced, which is when you're gunning for God, you're big in there, you're doing the preaching, you're going to be the next healing, the next Benny Hinn on the scene, whatever, you're really going for it. That's where the devil's going to attack you. That's kind of a given. That's the way it works. That's what you're told anyway. But the way to stop that happening is to dig deeper into God, to do more praying, to have more protection, to have more worship, to have more repentance, to dig into the word and put on the armor and all those things and quote more verses and stuff like that. So they're actually getting you to double down on the thing that makes
that's the solution,
the attack in the first place. And it's like you could be in this never-ending cycle, in fact, of it just more attack with more like gunning for God with more attack, there was something to be said for the lukewarm Christian that wasn't really going anywhere and doing very much, because they would kind of be left alone. Satan would leave you alone. That was the thing we were told. It was kind of something to kind of aim for, really.
Yeah, but I think the thing that concerns me most about that kind of theology and the effect that it had on me individually in that experience of losing my job is it gave me something to blame that wasn't me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the big sour part of this whole thing. That's the poison in all of this theology.
And it wasn't God. It gave you something to blame that wasn't you, and that wasn't God.
And that wasn't God. Yes. The reality was I didn't make it through a probationary period in that employment because for whatever reason, I wasn't the right person for the job. Maybe it was something about me, or maybe there was a personality clash. But the solution was for me to be a different person. It wasn't because I was the right person, but some nefarious spiritual being poisoned it for me. It's because something in me really should have changed in order for that job to be the better job for me. And all of that expunging of that personal responsibility is what happens as a result of that. And I think that's really quite nefarious. And I think this is a whole part of this theology, and that blaming demons for our own mistakes creates, and I think at its worst, it can create arrogant people who are incapable of admitting fault. And I think that is what we need to unpack from this kind of thing. And I think Christians who get too far and too deep into this kind of thing probably become worse people as a result of it, because they're incapable of accepting their own fault.
Sarah, do you have a statement that you would like to make before I hand it off to Brian?
Well, I just agree with Matthew there that I think it really disempowers you, because you just feel like you're this little pawn in the huge cosmic chess game, and so you interpret every single experience and whatever happens to you through this lens, and it stops you just seeing life unfolding, things happening, bad things, good things. They just happen. You're not being singled out by Satan himself for some suffering. They just happen. And I find you're much more of an integrated person by rejecting that idea and not thinking it's the devil. Maybe it's your flesh, maybe it's God, maybe it's the Holy Spirit, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's your fallen nature, but you're a redeemed creature, and you're so confused by what's going on in your head, unnecessarily so. You don't know whether to scratch your watch and wind your butt. You've got no idea what's going on. It's like, it's just, whereas if you can just be integrated and just like, stuff happens, this is a problem, this is suffering, I can now deal with it myself. It's down to me, and maybe helping with help of other people and things. It's a much more integrated and peaceful way to live. Whereas with this constant chatter of, could it just be your nature that's brought up this bad thought, or is it a demon whispering in your ear? You've no idea. There's no way of evaluating it. So you're constantly in this tension. And I honestly went back there this week looking at this information and digging up some of the old sermons, in particular the one that we're probably going to hear from my old pastor, who I thought was very moderate and very considered. And we were on the charismatic side, but it was kind of not crazy. But, you look back on it, and it is totally nuts. But you're in this tension the whole time that's just exhausting. And I got a glimpse in that this week of just how everything is being filtered through this constantly. Is it God? Am I supposed to be doing this? You're trying to put your kid in a certain school and the admissions process is a bit difficult. Is that attack? Is that the flesh? Is that just, should you be, you get people round to all the energy you spend getting people round to pray against this so that your kid can go to the school or whatever it is you're trying to achieve and this goal, and is it right? And you really feel you heard God on this, and and then it's just an exhausting way to live. Absolutely. I was floored by going back there to realize just how that happens. It's crazy.
I think I suspect we'll come back to that thought. Brian.
Sure. So when I was a Christian, I was in the American Baptist strain of Christianity, and we definitely believed in Satan as a literal being. We definitely believed in demons and demonic forces. But when I look back on kind of the role that it played in our belief structure, we really didn't talk about them in a day-to-day fashion. They were really more metaphorical with regards to, how demons and the devil were influencing us to be sinful and to do, wrong behavior and to be out of a good relationship with God. So we really weren't going around, looking under rocks in haunted houses for demons. We weren't standing up on hills with, Satan figures with the pitchfork and the hood and the tail. It was really more metaphorical in how it bore out in reality. And I'm curious as to what percentage of Christians, think about demons and the devil in this way, and which ones are much stronger in believing they're literally true and believe that they're literally out there. One thing that I wanted to bring back is, in the last iteration of Skeptics and Seekers, we had a whole show dedicated to Satan, God of this world. And there was a Christian panel show, and there was an atheist panel show, and there was an entire, almost an 800 comment thread on the discus boards going over both of these shows. And I actually went back and scrolled through that discussion board before we did the show today. And I was struck at how absolutely devoid of evidence there is for demons and the devil. It all amounts to the Bible says it's so, and that's why they believe it. That's why we believed it. But again, given that I wasn't bumping into the demons, at the 7-Eleven, it didn't go much beyond, they're out there, be careful, but we weren't, really vetting them in the same way we would vet, do I have a basketball coach? Do I have a mortgage lender? Do I have a local librarian? They were kind of this ethereal entity that we were worried about, entirely in the kind of metaphysical realm. So hopefully after this show, if we're going to have any sort of extensive comment thread, I want the Christians to bring the evidence. Where's the evidence beyond that the Bible says it's so, that there are actually demons out there doing stuff? That's the part that really struck me about this topic.
It's all pre-sup, isn't it? It's just presupposition that it's true, and we go from there. No, there's never any laying down of evidence. I mean, that just doesn't come up. It's anecdotal at best, but mostly just the Bible says that. So that's it.
So
I
Right.
only believed in the existence of demons because I was taught to believe it. You know, if I'd gone to a different church which didn't teach it, I wouldn't have believed it. It
Right.
really is that simple.
before
And from a young age as well. I think if you've got, it's not just glasses that you're wearing and seeing the lens through. You have had cataracts implanted at birth to view the world this way. It's just the way the world is. There's no.
we'll
This
get
is
there.
why it's so
We're gonna
funny
get there.
to see. Okay.
The host has his hand up.
Okay, we're gonna get there.
We're all rusty, David. We're rusty. Give us a break.
Look, I'm chomping at the bit for this one too. Before we head to Andrew, I just want to make a quick note for the listeners, and maybe even you, Brian, because you made a comment in a discussion thread we were in before on Calvinism that you were an American Baptist, and I want to make a distinction between the American Baptist and the Southern Baptist. It's not the same thing, and Southern Baptist is really, I think, the Baptist that people think of, at least in America, as Baptist. If there's a garden variety, vanilla, generic Baptist that people think of, it's probably Southern Baptist. Excuse me, that has that. And so, for instance, you mentioned that the American Baptist didn't really have a Calvinist influence. That's a very odd and rare thing in Baptist as a whole. There are many forms of Baptist, but Southern Baptist is way bigger. And you mentioned here that American Baptist didn't really have a focus on demons. Once again, Southern Baptist, very demon heavy people. So when you hear Baptist, and I'm not sure how it is in other parts of the world, because Baptist is also a worldwide thing, but mostly I think the influence would be Southern Baptist. I think the numbers would bear that out. And that's a different flavor of Baptist entirely than some of the others.
Yeah. That's a great point of clarification. When I was growing up, I think the furthest south I got was Long Island. So definitely not Southern Baptist.
I see. All right, Andrew, and then we'll open it up with our first sound clip and let our freak flags fly.
So one of the interesting things about the religious tradition that David and I share is that the conservative Church of Christ, there's not to be confused with the Universal Church of Christ, the Church of Christ, and Firstborn, and all of those
Christian Church,
all those
Disciples
folks.
of Christ.
Yeah, so there's a conservative Church of Christ that you've heard a lot about if you listen to Still Unbelievable and to the former show known as Skeptics and Seekers, etc. But the interesting thing about the Church of Christ, and it's not the only denomination in Christian tradition that is this way, is that while the members would profess some belief in angels and demons, the main line of those believers would tell you that angels and demons don't operate today like they did 2,000 years ago. So there would not be any modern demon possession, a la the Catholic Church. The notion that the devil made you do it is just a colloquialism in the Church of Christ. And so there is no miraculous indwelling either of the Holy Spirit or of demons. And so it, to me, is interesting to note that even among people who have a really motivated reason to believe in demons in the way that the Southern Baptists do, or the Pentecostals do, or the Catholics do, even people with the same degree of motivation to believe in this kind of miraculous behavior, this demon possession, that sort of thing, even with people that have that same level of motivated reasoning, they don't believe in demon possession. That ought to be a cautionary tale to everyone, the people with the motivated reasoning and the people without it. So think about that as the show goes forward, because the ultimate question is, what did we learn about demons when we were Christians? Well, one of the things I learned was, even with the best motivated reasoning around, I still didn't have good reason to believe that demons were possessing people. But it probably goes a little further than that. So one of the questions that we should all ask, especially as this show goes on, but at the end of the show, when you're wondering about this and nobody's talking in your ear, the question that you ought to be asking yourself is, what is the disadvantage of me not believing in demons? So let me ask you another way. If today you just said, I don't think there's any demons doing anything miraculous, what is your downside? So it very much seems to me, and this is the last thing I have in my opening, it very much seems to me that the risks and rewards of demon belief are flipped in a way that's pretty unhealthy. So what do I mean? If you believe in demons and you've got somebody you love and you think they did something wrong and you just attribute it to demons, you're not going to hold them responsible and they're not going to get the help they need. If you believe that demons just come and go in and out of people, that the world is controlled by an unseen hand, a hand for which you have no explanation, not only are you not going to understand the world around you very well, but in a lot of people, it takes away their motivation to understand the world around them. And so if demons are real, it ought to be equally apparent to people with the same level of motivation. And it's not. It's not like there's a well-accepted agreement about how demons work. I'm sure we're going to get into that. And if you ask yourself, what is the downside of not believing in demons? There doesn't seem to be any.
Okay.
I'll leave it there for now.
I'm going to hit our first sound clip here. And as we do that, one of the questions that I have asked over the course of a couple of shows that I've done on demons for 4S is, why do Christians need demons? It seems like the Christian doctrine would be better off without demons. It's a kind of a thorny, touchy subject for them with no real benefits that are apparent. And so as we work on trying to come up with a better doctrine of demons, I'm just curious if throughout the course of this show, and I've been asking people to leave comments on this and they haven't, why are demons even important for Christians? Why is it necessary? Why does it seem like it's so necessary for the Christian faith? Because they seem almost embarrassed by the doctrine, but they can't let it go. They can't stop preaching about it. It's integral somehow to the faith. Why? Let's listen to nameless pastor. I was asked to leave at least one factor of this nameless, either the person who gave it to me or the name of the pastor. So we will just say nameless pastor. And we won't listen to the whole sermon. I've got a few clips, and there are just a couple of things that I want to point out that might spur conversation, although I don't really think this conversation needs to be artificially spurred.
For us, we can easily forget that we are equally in a war zone that is just as fierce as that.
Okay, already my first interruption. We're in a war zone. When the first time I came out of Yankee Station at night after a game, great game, lots of fun, and my wife and I made our way to the nearest subway. It was at night. There was just like penguin shuffling room only all the way from the stadium to the subway. And in the subway, I've never been in such a mass of people in my life. But one might have said of that, it's like a war zone in here. But we would have said that metaphorically. This preacher, I've listened to the whole sermon. He does not mean it metaphorically when he says this is a war zone. He means it literally. There's a literal hot war going on. So just bear that in mind as he makes this opening.
But because we don't see it, we're not always aware of it. But the battles that we face are very real. So have a look at this verse from the Bible. It comes in Matthew chapter 12, verse 30. It's the Message translation.
Okay, and just a moment, Andrew. We'll let you in a minute.
And it says, "This is war, and there is no neutral ground."
Okay, first of all, it doesn't say that. I don't care what translation it is. I know the Message translation. I know Eugene Phillips. It doesn't say that. So stop it. Just stop it. In fact, he cites several verses in here, and then he proceeds to say nothing of the sort.
We can't opt out of this war. It's here, it's very real. And for some of you that may come as a bit of a surprise, but I hope that it will help to make sense of some of the things that you see happening around you. Elsewhere in the Bible, in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, it says, "This is no afternoon athletic contest that we'll walk away from and forget about in a couple of hours. This is for keeps. A life or death fight to the finish against the devil and all his angels."
Now that I think about it, that
So
does read a
triggered.
lot like the Message, doesn't it? But
This is just an insult to what actual war is.
it really is.
It does not. This shouldn't be dignified. Look, this shouldn't be dignified in the pews when there's not a war. But
You're quite
we
right.
we are living in days right now where all you have to do is turn on Fox News or CNN or Al Jazeera, or the BBC. It doesn't matter what your news outlet is. You can go to TikTok, YouTube, you can go to Telegram. It doesn't matter where you go. You can find the actual face of war right now. You can find children living in darkness underground for weeks on end without food, with their parents having lost body parts due to Russian shelling.
Right.
I
He thinks that's what this is.
Quite frankly, incensed.
Mm.
At this point, right? I mean, in the days when the world is a kinder, gentler place, maybe this plays okay. But right now, it really just doesn't play okay.
No, it doesn't play okay. He really does mean that. He really does envision that. Here, let's continue here.
This war is real. There is a spiritual battle that affects us every day.
Okay, this war is real. One of the first red flags for this war is that someone has to stand up and say, no, really, this war is real. When have you ever had to say that about, a war? No, honestly, this war is real. There really is a war. Honest, I promise.
There is a war for our soul, our mind, our emotions, trying to control our bodies, our will, and our spirit, every part of us. Have you noticed the war? I'm sure you've noticed some of the results. So
he's going to go over some of the things that he thinks is the war. Take notes.
have you ever felt tempted to do something that you knew was wrong? I'm not going to ask for hands up on that one. Because every time you're tempted, that is a battle in the war.
Every time
It's not.
you're
It's
tempted.
just thoughts arising.
No, it's a war. It's
It's not.
demons. It's demons.
You can observe them arising. They just come up. You
It's
just can't
demons.
so triggered by this because confession, that was my pastor from 20 years ago. And I
Hey,
am right
Matt,
back there.
are
in the
you tempted
pews
to jump in
listening
and say
to-
something? It's demons.
Okay.
Have you
was, it's
seen the
demons.
natural disasters on television and the wars that are recorded there? Every single one of those is a battle.
Natural disasters. That's demons. Hey, can demons cause natural disasters? Can they?
He's been talking to Hugh Ross, man.
Can demons cause a tsunami? Because if not, why isn't it tsunamis all the time? Can demons? Christians
Yeah,
that
that's
I
why
knew in
not.
my day would have said that demons couldn't do that. But I guess they've gotten an upgrade since then. What were you saying, Matt? I missed what you said, Matt. I'm sorry. I was on a roll.
I said the reason they can't cause tsunamis is because of the Christians praying. That's why.
Well,
Okay.
apparently there's not enough of them now because all of the natural disasters.
That in the war that is affected by spiritual things. Have you seen
What does that mean?
governments bringing in laws which are morally wrong? Those are battles in the war.
Demons.
Have you personally... Is that this microphone?
Emons.
Demons.
Okay, I'll switch over.
Oh, this is
See if this one
gonna
behaves
behave
itself.
badly.
Have you personally been held back by fear or affected by other wounds from your past?
Yes,
Each one
because
of
you're
those
human.
is a battle in the war.
Demons.
Do you have strongholds in your life which hold you back? They are part of the war, but the good news that we were singing about earlier is that Jesus can set us
This
free.
will set
Okay,
you
look, there's
free.
one more here. Strongholds. I'm going to ask you specifically, Sarah, what the hell is a stronghold? I've heard this language so much from Pentecostals usually.
You didn't have strongholds?
No.
You didn't know a first thing about demons and stuff. Then in that case, they were the things that you did repeatedly. They were things that had like maybe come down through generations. They were like points in your life that were really hard to move. They're not just your little spirit that's coming.
Compulsions.
Compulsions. Yeah, more than that. There's strongholds. They've gained the ground in there. So you know if you are lusting, you've lost that bit of ground, and the demons are in charge of that particular bit. They're ruling that bit of your life at the moment. So they're kind of installed. It's a place where there's
installed.
They're installed at that point. That's what a stronghold is. And oh my God,
I
you
tell
don't
you
know how
what, when I'm
don't know how
lusting, I
triggering.
definitely have a stronghold.
And,
I'm sorry.
You don't know how triggering this is for me. Not Matthew's stronghold, but just hearing this all over again.
The wheels
so
weren't supposed
bad.
to come
Hold
off
on.
this early, but
are we going to trigger you more if we talk about Matthew's stronghold? I just want to know. I think it's...
Well, I tell you what, definitely any sort of sexual anything is a demon. So I mean, you're really stuffed, aren't
here's
you?
the
No, I
thing.
think it's a stronghold, right? It's no.
here's the thing.
It's a proper stronghold.
When Andrew tried to say, "Oh, you mean compulsions?" You did the Christian things. No, strongholds. No. How dare you try to define this with words we can understand? It's strongholds, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. What's not to? It's prince and principalities. I mean, the only principality I know is Monaco. Oh. And I don't really know what that means.
Okay,
it just means a country within a country, doesn't it? So I don't know why there were powers.
We're gonna get there.
Lesotho is also a principality, although it's not Lesotho anymore. It's Eswatini, I think.
I want to go back and do Christianity
Previously
in one of the fun
Bazookaland.
denominations.
Yes.
Right? You guys got to do the fun denominations. I want to go back and do the fun denomination. My denomination was not any fun.
What's the
All
point
right,
otherwise?
One more little bit here. There's another sign of demons.
Torture.
Have you known someone who died when they hadn't finished what God had put them here on earth to do?
No.
That was a lost battle in the war.
Okay, so here's the thing.
That one must hurt.
Yeah, putting my
Yeah.
Christian hat on for a moment. Who has ever died that did finish everything that God put him here to do? I mean, that's got to be a pretty short list. In other words, everyone is a lost battle, I guess. Whenever you die, I've attended many funerals and many deathbeds. People were, gasping their last. And a common thing, in some of those final conversations is to hear people talk about what they haven't done, what they haven't completed. No one feels like, yes, I'm good now. The curtain must fall. That's a lost battle to a demon, I guess.
I've got a funny story about that.
Yeah, let me hear your funny story about last gasp on deathbeds.
My funny.
Sorry.
It's vaguely related, but you'll laugh anyway. Right, you guys are familiar with the Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, I assume. I had a.
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, Calvin was a
You
cheeky
mean Dilbert?
preteen
No,
cartoon lad. You know, he's sort of cartoon lad that would throw a stone through the neighbour's window, kind of thing. So a cheeky, good for nothing lad. So I had a T-shirt with that kind of character on it, and in a block of text underneath that cartoon character, it said, "God put me on this earth to achieve a certain number of things. Right now, I'm so far behind. I'm going to live forever." So that was a T-shirt I had, and I used to wear it occasionally, usually at the weekend. And one day, I wore it to church on Sunday. And
Blasphemer!
It gets better. It gets better. I got to church, and then discovered that I was on communion duty.
Oh no!
So there I am, standing at the front of the church, holding the communion wine and bread in my scabby shorts and this unironed T-shirt with this thing on the front, which I knew some people in church would not be impressed by. If I'd realized I was on communion duty, I would not have gone like that. I'd have worn trousers or jeans and an ironed shirt. But I thought I was able to just slip in at the back and not do a lot, but nope, there I was parading this blasphemous shirt in front of the whole of the congregation, serving people communion. I wanted to die. It's funny now, but I wanted to die at the time.
Right, there were people there who wanted you to die. I assure you.
Yeah. No, this was pre-Harry. This was in the early days of Harry Potter. The movies hadn't even been thought of.
No,
the
exactly.
books hadn't even been finished.
Hey Brian, let me loop you in, Brian, real quick. Brian, you listen to this litany of things that are signs of, the battle, demons. How did you in the American Baptists think about that? The signs of demons. I mean, did you think in terms of, oh, that looks like demonic activity there? And if so, what would trigger that thought? Because this guy, it seems like everything triggers the thought of demonic activity.
Yeah, back in those days, we would not have hyper-focused on the entity, the demon, doing the wrong. But we would certainly acknowledge all of those as battles for our souls, right? Where our minds and our attitudes and our intentions were shifted away from what God wanted.
Okay, but who is in the battle then?
So again, I'm trying to remember what it was like when I was younger in this. We did not hyper focus on, we got to get rid of the demon entity. It was you got to stop doing the bad thing. And maybe the demon aspect of it was just to underline kind of the stakes, kind of to make it more important, kind of, again, a higher stakes game, that it's not just something you can fix yourself. It's something you need to, kind of tap into Jesus, tap into God to help you get right. So I'm kind of backfilling an explanation, that I'm not remembering directly. So like I said, we really wouldn't have focused on the entity, the demon, but we would have called those things demonic. We would have called them, evil or Satan inspired. But the answer would have been to pray and to put your mind on God and to get yourself right so that those things would go away.
So Andrew, if everything is a demon, then nothing's a demon. It seems like by calling everything a demon, you just marginalize the idea of demons. Because everything can't be demons. If everything is demons, then it's hopeless. And so it just turns demons into a metaphor. Is that how you understood it coming up in the church?
Well, I guess there's some real parallels, right? So first of all, if everything's a demon, how do you falsify that there are demons? So if everything's a demon, there are two problems. First of all, how would I know? What causes me? I guess the idea is a thing that explains everything explains nothing, right? Okay, so that's the first problem. But the bigger issue is if everything is a demon, where is free will, and how do I become responsible for anything at all? How does God charge a sin against Sarah being triggered by Matthew's stronghold? Okay, sorry. Look, seriously, how do we become responsible for any acts if demons are everything?
'Cause I don't know. I don't know how you would measure demons or the effect of demons, because the ruler is demons. So I mean, everything is demons. What do you measure it against? So if someone is having a bout of depression, how can you tell if that's demons or depression? Well, it's all demons. So there is no such thing as natural human depression. If there is no such thing as natural human depression, then going to a counselor is senseless, because all a counselor can do is give you good conversation and advice and maybe some medication, if they're that kind of doctor.
Maybe that bores the demon and they run away.
If you beat your wife, but there's nothing you could do about it because it's a demon, then why would we hold you responsible? Why would a Christian ever hold another Christian responsible for the act of a demon?
Because you can hold out against them. That's the whole point. They oppress you and they afflict you and they tempt you, but you can still, unless you've let them in and given them strongholds into your life, then you can resist them, and that's what you are supposed to do with prayer and everything. But they're the perfect thing to blame a lot of the time. I think, in defense of that guy, of this unnamed pastor, I know that he wouldn't have seen everything in everyday life. There'd be the cray stuff at the front. And, we were in Oxford at the time. There's people that are highly intelligent there. It's kind of quite an academic town. It's like, people aren't stupid, and nor is he. And he would have preached that on a Sunday, but on a daily practical level, he knew that it wasn't a demon that was taking his parking space and, made his car bump and stuff like that. But it would be I think it's just, if you want to reflect on something, then you can weave in this narrative of the demon, made me late, or actually the Holy Spirit made me late and I avoided that accident. The demons were obviously out to get me because I was going to a really important worship meeting. And, you would just kind of start spinning these stories in your head. And so, but it depended on whether you gave anything meaning. So it's not necessarily everything. Sometimes you would just slam your finger in the door and think and not think anything of it. But other times you would spin this narrative around all these things that were happening to you to kind of make sense of it. This is what you needed, because you're in a cosmic war where you don't know what's going on. So many things are hidden from you that you need to start making sense, and you start pulling at these strings and trying to weave a tapestry of sense in the whole thing. But it's just nonsense. It's proper emperor's new clothes. It's just not really there. Once you let those filters
question there, because there's
hello.
So Sarah, I've got a question for you that I hope you can clear up for me. So look, I accept that he wouldn't have said everything is demons under different circumstances. But something you said there was particularly interesting to me. So we can resist demons, is the idea. Well, okay. So does that mean that if humans do things wrong, and we do things wrong with and without demons, so there are sins whether demons are involved or not, what is the point of the Christian God having demons running around? And by the way, they're supernatural. How do humans resist the supernatural? So answer either one of them, but what is the point of God letting demons run around? And I'm still not sure about the resistance thing. That just doesn't make sense to me.
So how would you know whether it was you or the demon? You didn't. I think you maybe missed that bit when I first started, when I said, that was the whole point. You didn't know if it was just your flesh and something, or a bad habit that you got into. I mean, this pastor would definitely sort of say, you're getting into a bad habit, so it could just be you. You need to clean up your life, and that's for you to do. And other times, I think if things were a little bit stubborn to go out of your life, if some of your habits didn't disappear overnight, then you start to question whether it's a demon. If it's an ongoing,
what is? Sorry, I got that. What is the point of demons Why does God have demons running around? If humans are going to do good things and bad things with or without demons, why does God have them? And that still doesn't answer the supernatural question of proving that humans can do battle with supernatural beings and win. But what is the point of God having demons running around if we're going to do the good and bad things without them?
Well, that's an excellent question. It's not one you ask yourself at the time. You just are told you are in this war. You're not questioning whether it's a good idea that whether this war could avoid. We had no idea. And a point of we would. I'd be interested in knowing if anybody else thought Christians could be demon possessed. We didn't think Christians could be demon possessed. If you were filled with the Holy Spirit, the charismatics were. And if you kept topped up, because that was another thing, it kept coming down all the time, and you had to pray to bring it back up again, and then it would start slowly draining. Whether you did anything or not, it just kind of drained away, and so you had to keep topping it up. And at that point, you couldn't let the demons in. There wouldn't be enough.
I didn't see any reason why Christians couldn't be demon possessed. I mean, theologically, you could go one way or the other.
That's it. But they could be oppressed by spirits.
But they could also. There's no reason for them not to be full-on possessed. Can a Christian play with a Ouija board? Yes. Do demons enter by way of Ouija boards when it's not me? Yeah. Right. So why wouldn't a Christian be possessed in that situation? Can a Christian listen to death metal? I know that Andrew will answer in the affirmative on that.
Sinner.
Not a real Christian.
No, exactly. Well, the point is a real Christian wouldn't have gone and played with the Ouija board. And
yes, a real Christian does all kinds of things all the time. No. Real Christians have affairs all the time. Real Christians...
Oh, well, in that case, if you're opening the door to the demons of adultery, then you deserve to have strongholds in your life.
That's what I mean. Christians are opening the door all the time.
But you couldn't just, not if you're trying not to and trying to live the Christian good life. But
you mean if you're trying not to open the door that you didn't sin?
If you didn't, sorry?
If you're trying not to sin, that means you don't sin? I mean, what kind of Pentecostal church was this you went to? Because Christians were beset with sin all the time.
If you just do a naughty thing once, the demon hasn't got time to get in. If you're constantly opening the door, the demon gets in. Okay? Everybody knows this. Demons are looking for bodies. This is what this other crazy preacher I was listening to find out what was being said. They're looking for warm bodies. I don't know why, but they need warm bodies.
Do Christians have their bodies?
They live. We're a vacation for demons.
I mean,
and that we were given.
Is it not hot enough where they are?
No, exactly. No, but we were given bodies because we're worthy, but they weren't given bodies, which brought the question to me. What is the difference between an evil spirit and a demon? Because a demon to me is more embodied. So the point was demons were kind of quite rare in the Christian things. To really be possessed by a demon, you would have had to do some seriously bad shit. But if you wanted but being oppressed by an evil spirit, a generational spirit, something, a murderous spirit, or the big ones, homosexual spirit, those kind of things, they would hover, spirits of greed, spirits of rejection, all those kinds of things.
Let me just ask a biblical question for the panel, because we were all there and we've all read the damn thing. Can you think of even one example in the Bible of a person being demon possessed where the Bible indicates, even implies, that it was their fault, that they somehow opened the door? Because I can tell you, I've been deep diving in the Gospels for a little while. Red Letters, people. Red Letters. You've heard me mention Red Letters before. Red Letters is the latest book that I've written, and you can get it where all of the great ebooks are sold for just $4.99, or you can get it at skepticsandseekers.squarespace.com for just $4.99. Or you can go, write this down, to patreon.com/redletters and pick it up for free. And the full name of the book is Red Letters, A Closer Look at the Worst Practical and Moral Teachings in History. We're deep diving on the teachings of Jesus. It is a lot of fun. It's the best fun I've had on the internet since I've been in my 50s. So it's been fantastic. The comments are great. You'll see many of the usual suspects, and they are in unusual good form. Join in on the conversation. We'd love to have you at patreon.com/red letters. A biblical question. Can any of you think of even one situation where there was any implication that a person was demon possessed because they were evil?
So what was the reason given for the guy who had Legion?
There was none.
There was none.
He was just presented as an innocent guy.
Okay. His parents weren't blamed for it then or anything like that. Okay.
He lived amongst the tombs, though, didn't he? So he's near the death thing. I reckon he did a bit of a Ouija board and got a few of them demons in.
But what you're doing is what Christians do. It's their head canoning.
Doesn't mean he didn't do it.
Exactly.
This is exactly what you have to do. You have to create this kind of headcanon that the only way you can get possessed is if you're evil and you've opened up the door. The Bible doesn't say that at all. It doesn't imply that.
David, what about the Sodom and Gomorrah people? Weren't they living this horrible evil
lifestyle? They weren't possessed by demons.
Yeah, demons weren't implicated in that one.
There were no demons then.
Weren't they having sex with? I thought they were having sex with demons.
No, they were not having. They were having sex with people.
I must be thinking of the Republican cloakroom. My mistake.
That's why we yell, "Oh God!" when we have.
Where is the mute button? God damn it!
It's angelic.
They suggest it to you usually. You may not have come up with it yourself. You may not be predisposed to it. So they give you further ideas. And obviously the whole point was we didn't really think Satan was omnipresent, do we? I mean, I don't know. You use the words demons and evil spirits and Satan interchangeably often. So the whole point is you've got to keep it murky. You've got to keep it a bit
I think this is ambiguous. A good time for clip number 2.
Isn't that where the whole custom of throwing salt over your shoulder comes from, to get the devil off your back so he stops whispering nasty things into your ear?
Why would salt
but
get
that
him
might
off
be
your
a
back?
bit of a superstition, in which case that's evil and that's let a demon in there. So
you don't win anyway.
you can't win your
we're gonna hit clip number 2. This is a short one. I'm going to not interrupt this one. And then I'm going to give us each as we appear on the screen. So I'll go last, actually. Matthew, Sarah, Brian, Andrew, I'll give you each 1 to 1.5 minutes to bloviate after hearing clip number 2.
Second really important thing in this spiritual battle is to recognize that your brother or your sister is never your enemy. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 says, we're not fighting against humans. We're fighting against forces and authorities and against rulers of darkness and powers in the spiritual world.
We are not fighting against humans. I'll save my thoughts. Matthew?
I'd rather talk about what we were just talking about.
I'm try to tie him in.
This is one of those Christianese things when 20 years ago I'd have sat there listening to this and I would have been all in behind what he was saying and I'd have nodded in full agreement. And now, 10 plus years after I'm out, the only thought I can fathom is, what the freaking hell is he talking about? I'm genuinely struggling to make anything coherent out of what I've just heard, because it no longer makes any sense to me. No. I can't pull anything coherent out of it. So I don't know, maybe come back to me after the others. I might have thought of something, but genuinely, it really is. It's a what the fuck.
Yeah. Well, we'll tie all of these themes together before we go. Sarah, we're not fighting against humans. That makes perfect sense.
Let's just keep let's just keep, I think the idea is if you keep, it's genius actually, if you keep people suitably confused about the whole matter, if there's demons, there's flesh, there's crucified flesh, there's your human nature that you're supposed to hate, but that's also giving you good ideas but bad ideas, and God and Holy Spirit and demons, but also Satan and just generally evil, and you're so confused of what's going on, you're highly suggestible. I think that's how it works. And so if you're saying we're not fighting humans, fine, you'll just suck it up, you'll believe it. Why not? But yes, you are fighting humans. That's the only people you do fight against. So let's just be clear about what actually happens. It's always couched in anecdotal evidence, and the evidence that they refer to is everything around you, everything that's there, anything bad that's ever happened, that's your evidence. What more do you want? Divorce, disease, illness, death, that's the devil. So let's pin everything on that, and we need to fight against that. And if you're in a place of vulnerability, and this is what I'm finding it really difficult to listen to him, because I can so picture myself there. I wasn't well at the time, I had ME, and I just remember I couched it all in this cloud of, it's the evil one doing something, I must be destined for some great God work, and so this is, I must fight against this, and you hang on to his words. Yes, we're not fighting, this isn't a human thing, this isn't shifting, so it must be spiritual in nature. And I went halfway across the other side of the world to find somebody who was supposedly you're susceptible to quackery, you're susceptible to all sorts of things, because you're not analyzing things properly. You're spinning this yarn, you're in this fantasy world, but it all makes perfect sense at the time. You step out it for any amount of time, and now that's probably 18 years since 20 years since I've been in that church, but it's exactly the same. It puts me right back in that moment of just desperation, of trying to make sense of this crazy world where bad things are happening to you, and you feel so unempowered, though Jesus is on your side and you're going to win in the end, and all those kind of things. And instead of just stepping out of all that and being an integrated person who's responsible for themselves, you live in this horrendous fantasy, exhausting type of way of looking at things, and it's just awful. It's really sad. I'm finding it really hard to listen to this. I really am.
I think I'm going to take that entire speech and make it my new ringtone. Brian, we're not fighting against humans, so who the hell are we fighting?
Apparently, we're fighting against the supernatural, and that little stretch of clip you played is interesting to me. It seems to be taking the agency out of humans, right? Like it's giving us off the hook. We don't have responsibility. We don't have free will. We don't have agency. It's all the demons' fault. It makes me wonder whether they'd be, happy to say they're not fighting with non-believers, the people that are preaching that God doesn't exist. I mean, how can we be held responsible for that? Maybe it's the demons that's making me believe that and say that to other people. I envision that they wouldn't take that angle with people like us, but yeah, this really is running hard afoul of any sort of free will agency doctrine in Christianity, and it would be great to see them try to square the circle.
Well, you can always resist it, but they're having an influence. So, for example, in Oxford, we'd always say we are under a spirit of, and I still want to know the difference between a spirit and a demon. We're under a spirit of academia. This is apparently a spirit, So people are proud and haughty and intellectual and skeptical, and therefore not open to the gospel. So, and it's kind of hovering, doing a thing on people somehow, in some way. I don't know how, but blinding them. We're all infected right now with the spirit of mockery. I mean,
I believe the term you're looking for is supernatural satanic stupidity. Andrew, when you hear or see someone running around the streets of Atlanta or wherever it is you hang out, and they are saying, "Oh, I'm in a battle, but it's non-human. It's a non-human. Help me. I'm fighting non-humans. Do you join in the fight? How do you, we're not fighting against humans. Andrew? So my thought on this, thanks, Andrew, by the way. I thought for sure you would take door number 3, that you joined the fight. Oh, let me let me have a swing at that non-human thing. Um, my my thought here, besides the fact that, if we any other context where a person is babbling that they are in a constant battle against non-humans, they would be wrapped up tight and put in a rubberized space. But you say it's demons on a Sunday morning and it's just religion. Um, I, I, I don't see the difference between the crazy, quite frankly. And, this is one of those places where I think that alien uh, uh, people prophesying about aliens and talking about alien invasions and alien abductions, um, those things were not invisible to them anyway. They're talking about things that are actually tangible for the Christian. It's just invisible people. And they say that in public without shame. But the thing I really wanted to say to this clip, and I'll let the conversation pick up where it was when I dropped there. We'll try to edit this in somehow. The thing that I wanted to say is that no matter how much they protest that the battle is not against flesh and blood, have you noticed that with all of your interactions with Christians who believe in demon activity, their battle seems to be with you? It does very much seem to be with flesh and blood. You are a servant of Satan. And so the way they get around it in their mind is, oh no, you are not the demon. You are human and I love you, but you are the golem for the demon. So the thing that I am battling is not you, it's the thing in you. It's the thing controlling you. It's the thing for which you are an avatar. So it definitely seems to me that the battle is indeed against flesh and blood. Andrew, I believe that you were in the process. We have one more sound clip that we're going to do, but go ahead and have a little bit of conversation in there. I'll try to do some
All right.
things here.
So, one of the things that I found interesting in the run up to this, and considering demons, is when you see an exorcism, you look them up on YouTube, and minus the video doctrine, what you don't see is demons. What you see is someone behaving erratically, being prayed over by someone else who's behaving erratically, and I find the whole thing. I find the whole thing very off-putting. It is humans with very serious problems being treated by people who themselves have very serious problems. It is human against human, and if it's not, if you're fighting the supernatural, it doesn't mean anything if you can win. If you can beat the supernatural, you must then yourself have access to some supernatural thing. Or It's just humans doing human. And the advantage of seeing things as humans doing human is that we can work at explaining things in human terms. And as far as I can tell, there has never been a miracle that stands the rigors of scientific scrutiny. Yes, I've read the books. It's just humans doing human. And if it's not, give up, because the only person that can fight on the supernatural playground are the other supernatural.
Right. Well, we have on the other side of this, which we're not going to talk about today, but angels. So it seems to me like what you've got to, if you're saying the battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principality. What the hell is a principality, by the way? That's not flesh and blood.
It's a prince you're a friend with.
Yeah, a prince
Prince
that's
of
pal.
power.
Yeah, no, I got it. I'm trying to wash that out. So, it seems like you've got angels that are responsible for all the good stuff and demons for all the bad stuff. And so angels and demons are fighting, and we're just caught in the middle, being used by either side for some God knows what purpose. So what is the actual battle going on then? I mean, if the actual battle is not my little life, then what is the battle? And if I'm on one side or the other, helping one side or the other do whatever, what is the goal of these cosmic bullies battling? And why didn't God just sort out this cosmic battle before bringing us in? Why are we dragged into that? We don't even know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. And to blame us for anything that happens in the cosmic battle is like blaming the gun or the bullet. The bullet was fired by a person with some goal. And the bullet has no idea why it's being fired or what it's doing. It's just there. And that's kind of how I feel when I listen to Christians talk about this. We're cannon fodder for a war that we don't understand and can't see.
No, and have you ever noticed how, as science progresses, the claims of what this supernatural war can do decreases? So, schizophrenia is no longer demon possession. Illnesses aren't demon possession. We now know why these things occur. But then there's always a story. There's always an anecdotal thing where somebody prayed out a demon or prayed out a spirit and an oppressive evil force, and the person got better or whatever. So it's always been drip fed, these little kind of things. But what we really need to see to make that claim is a randomized controlled clinical trial of people being exorcised of their demons and a follow-up of how much better they're doing later. That's the only way to prove that these claims are actually a thing. If not, you're just talking on small anecdotal things which are probably people with psychological problems.
Speaking of which,
we had those exorcisms in church on a Sunday morning fairly regularly. We would see as a child people writhing on the floor, foaming at the mouth, kind of eyes rolling back, all that stuff. We'd see all that. So
I would have paid real money to see that.
It was a true thing. Sorry?
Yeah. So look, we've got one more clip, and I'm going to open the doors completely. All of the subjects,
demons.
All of the subjects are still on the table, but I want to bring in this one last clip, and I want us to start thinking about the serious business of formulating some type of coherent doctrine of demons. It's just a mental exercise, people. I've tried to do this. I tried to do it as a Christian. I've tried to do it as an atheist a few times. I've not tried to do it with other people because right now, everything that we are saying speaks to the idea that we can't imagine any kind of doctrine of demons that is coherent. I want us to try a little harder. But here, last clip. This should prime the pump. Here we go.
When I was healed of asthma, it was something that had come down through my family, caused by an afflicting spirit. And it was wonderful the day I felt freedom from that. But
how did, okay, I'm sorry. How did he know that the asthma had come down through his family by an inflicting spirit?
A few days later, it tried to come back because it wasn't just a physical condition. It was something spiritual. And
How does what? Asthma is physical, right?
the spirit tried to come back. And so I rebuked it and I stood my ground.
What the hell does it mean to rebuke asthma? I'm sorry. I gotta stop.
And it had to go. Because in the name of Jesus, these things have to go. But every now and then, not so much now, but occasionally it still tries to come back.
It still goes back.
I rebuke thee with a nebulizer.
just another second. We're
the
almost
one is too short.
This is just so
And I
embarrassing.
just stand my ground and I say, no, I'm not having that. That is not my inheritance from my Heavenly Father. And so you can get stuffed.
Oh man, you just it's so bad.
I gotta come off mute.
He would have known it was generational because we would have had somebody with a word of knowledge which would have exposed that, and then you could claim it for it to go, and you would convince yourself it had gone, and that's how it works. And of course it isn't, so it comes back. Oh dear God.
I'm so sorry. I tried to make it through this with a straight face.
And it's only asthma. I mean, you can take a goddamn Ventolin for that, for goodness sake. You don't need a miracle from
That is
heaven.
the problem.
There are kids
You are
in
taking
basements
your
in
no.
Ukraine.
Stop it. I've got a rescue inhaler in the other room.
Just check something. How old is this clip?
2017.
2017 is when it was uploaded. Whether it's this is the stuff we were told back in 1990s, early 2000, and I went.
So he's
back
still
online.
preaching the same sermon 20 years
It's
later.
the same. I think so. It's the same sermon. It's the same disease that was healed. It's the same. Yeah, exactly the same. I really thought it would have moved on because they must be rubbing up against people who are taking the mick out of them, and people in the congregation must be going online and seeing some of the better arguments for this and being challenged. But maybe they're not. Maybe they're staying in some sort of bubble where this just still flies.
I'm sorry.
And you do remember being there.
The proper incantation for the demon of asthma is
Get stuffed.
Get stuffed.
Oh, it's so good.
An example. Here is an example.
Oh, get stuffed, baby.
This is an example of a benefit of not thinking that the world works based on demons. Remember, earlier I
It's a benefit of thinking it does, because you can be healed from asthma instead of just taking a puffer.
you're not healed if it comes back.
But you just keep rebuking it.
to rebuke the asthma.
It's just so warm and attractive. The demon wants to come back and live in your chest again.
I said up front that the risk and reward of believing in demons was flipped over. This is one of the examples where it's flipped over. Believe in demons, and you think that you can command asthma to leave you, and then it comes back, and it provides you no understanding whatsoever of what asthma is, or how it works, or appropriate treatment. It doesn't provide you long-term risk mitigation. It doesn't invite you to understand the genetic factors. If your asthma happens to be have a genetic link, it doesn't invite you to figure out how to treat your kids early so they have better lungs in their lives later. Thinking that the world works based on demons is a recipe for long-term misery.
Well, it's also a recipe for long-term mental illness. It's a recipe for long-term everything. It's a recipe for COVID running rampant through certain communities. It's that kind of recipe indeed, because you think you've got some kind of magical incantation. You can put on the whole armor of God, you see. And if you have on the whole armor of God, then you can fight off these demons. Resist the devil. Someone can help me finish this line. Resist the devil, and you
Will flee
unstudied
from you.
heathen. There you go.
The one
You know, you were the last person I thought this was going to come from. There you go. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That's Ephesians, folks, and that is bullshit. Because he will not flee. It's kind of like saying resist the train, and it will flee from you. No, it won't. It will run you flat. It will run you flat. The whole armor of God that preachers wear clearly doesn't have underpants, because they've impregnated enough secretaries and enough deacons' wives to fill orphanages. It does not work. Resisting the devil, or whatever you think the devil is, doesn't make him flee. And part of the danger of calling everything a demon, you remember that was the first clip that we started with. Everything's a demon. Well, then if everything's a demon, then everything's in this spiritual realm that can be handled with an incantation or a prayer or a scripture, or just resisting the devil or rebuking the thing, instead of real solutions that can save your life.
I would love them to tackle the interaction problem as well with these demons. That would be interesting.
Well, now I don't know how many of you heard the show that I was on with the Christian show. I tried to deal with this problem, and I know that I was pretty clumsy with it. And I just want to say, I thought that Magatak and Dale and Russell, they did a good job. They did their best with difficult subject matter. And so I say that with all sincerity and appreciation for them showing up and trying. But my first question, which I don't think we ever really got off of, was how do demons do anything?
Yeah.
How do they do it? So if you're saying that a demon can make you, can a demon get in your mind and use telepathy to make you do things? Well, they all said no. And then I think some of them went back and said, well, maybe. But if no, then how does a demon tempt you?
Yeah.
Well, he creates situations. Well, how does he create a situation? Does he move rocks in your way so that you hit them with your car? Does he write papers and move papers around on your desk so that you miss important things? What is the workflow that these demons are using to do anything? And the Christian
did you
can't
guys
get
even
past
get a handle on whether they could read your thoughts or not, or whether they weren't privy to your thoughts? Because we were very kind of bit ambiguous on that. We had no idea whether they could only infer things from seeing things in the natural world, but they couldn't read your thoughts. But then there was some ideas that maybe Satan could. And is it Satan that's mostly fiddling with you? Or is it him that you get? You're getting his attention
as well.
Satan is definitely fiddling with me. I can tell you that right
is
now.
it the demons?
Says you don't leave a diary. Is that the moral of the story? Because
Exactly. Yeah,
You see,
maybe
but Christians kind of take a little bit of offense when you ask and you press these questions. These are kind of serious questions. If you're saying that demons are doing these things, how exactly are they doing these things? And if they have the power, if a demon has the power to get into my mind and read my thoughts and know my weaknesses and then push me to make me think certain things, so that I have certain desires, I have no chance. I have no hope. And I can show you the Christian solution of rebuking the demon doesn't work. Because all you have to do is look at all the Christians with their pants literally down right now. It doesn't work.
This is such a big issue that I don't think the Christians realize or want to get into. I mean, how can us mere mortals be faulted for losing a war against a supernatural agent that's stronger than us? It would be like blaming me for losing a fight with Mike Tyson. I could give it all that I've got. I've got no chance. How can you blame me for being corrupted by a supernatural agency?
It sounds like something I've been saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
You got to do the fasting, Brian. You've got to do the fasting. That's it.
Yeah,
If
do
you
it when
feel
you're
hungry,
that's what it is.
yeah, they leave then. But
Okay, so there is that incident. Here's the red letters moment. Patreon.com/red letters. Here's the red letters moment. So Jesus and his disciples are out, and his disciples are casting out demons. They're doing a good job, and they come up to a demon that they can't cast out. And Jesus is like, this guy. Look, you got to do fasting and prayer for this one. And I, even as a kid reading this story, I was like, well, wait a minute. They were disciples of Jesus. They were praying all the time. So what?
yeah, but this demon was buff, man.
So is there a specific prayer that they needed for this demon? And if so, why didn't Jesus teach it to them? and if they had to be fasting to do some of the demons they would encounter, why did they eat fried chicken the night before? Why didn't Jesus say, look, we're going up against some demons. There are some that require fasting. Okay, so
Is this the day when Jesus cooked their breakfast on the beach with a huge, great big thing of fish?
No, I don't know.
Aren't any of you laughing at the notion of a kinder, gentler demon? You know, the one that you can just, this Airbnb wasn't really open to you, would you just kind of move on? Isn't anybody laughing at the demon possession that you can reason with? Oh, you've got that kind of demon, we can just talk to it and it'll leave. But this person over here, that's got the kind of demon where you need the fasting and prayer route.
Well, and how long must the fasting go on before you do this demon? Because if you don't know when
until they get all you stuffed to death.
Here's the thing, though. If you don't know when you're going to encounter one of these special demons, when is it safe to eat?
Well, this was in one of the sermons I listened to. That the pastor was going on about there's some demons that aren't really there to hurt you. In fact, they might even help you because they'll make you some money, but you just don't want them there anyway. And apparently it was I think he was referring to something in the Bible where there was a demon that was being quite helpful to a lady. Does that ring a bell? I can't remember the story in any way, but he seemed to think that was a thing. Some of the demons aren't really that bad, but we didn't really deal with demons. It was mostly evil spirits because you get the impression they're a bit thinner, so they can slide in a bit easier. They can come in, through the cracks of your brain. Whereas a demon that was more body. There's more body to a demon. You don't want them for sure, but
so
the evil spirits.
Just stop it. Stop it.
So, I would like to point out for
just one second. Does anyone on the panel, when you were coming up in the church at any point in your church life, did you distinguish between demons and evil spirits? This is a quick yes, no for me.
Really,
no.
American Baptist?
No, I think they were the same, or roughly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, Sarah, you
good to
really had it
know,
bad.
and you need to know your enemy.
So, in all seriousness, this is worth all the listeners knowing. There are serious Christian theologians like Hugh Ross, and he's got some co-authors. He wrote a book with some
Lights
co-authors
in the Sky and
Little
Little Green Men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I bring this up because David's right to try to get us to put some bounds around the capacities of demons. We've been having good fun talking about the kinder, gentler demon that'll just move on request versus the ones that really take some demon oil to get them out of you. But there's a good question about the capabilities of demons. Well, Hugh Ross et al. Think that demons are unbounded by human standards. I mean, maybe Hugh Ross would say quite willingly that demons are bounded within the authority of God. But and I will quote an interview with Hugh Ross here. Demons can come and go from human dimension without restriction.
Mm.
And so with that kind of idea, it makes the exercise of trying to understand the capabilities of demons pretty useless. They don't have a limit by human standards. And he goes on to say that UFOs, there are UFOs that may be demons. No, I'm not kidding.
Awesome. I've heard that one, yeah.
He's nuts though. Come on, he's totally nuts. That one, Hugh Ross.
Serious theologians say. So I'm not poking fun at Hugh Ross, though I have, and I don't deny that I have. But this gets out of hand, doesn't it? Because we are actually attempting to put some bounds first on a thing that I don't believe demons exist. As far as I can tell, there's no good evidence. But serious theologians think that they don't have bounds by human standards. And so I don't know what to do with that. I just offer it up for the panel because this is actually part of the remit of this show, to try to understand the capabilities and limitations.
So let's turn the corner right now. And so let's turn the corner to the home stretch and see if we can offer some advice that might go toward a more coherent doctrine on demons. Now, I can tell you every time that I've done this exercise, whether I spent a short time or a long time, I always came to the same place. So I'll just skip to the end. You have to get rid of demons. There's no way to keep them and have a coherent Christian message, in my opinion. And I can I can tell you of the Christians that I still am in contact with. I will name check Teddy here because I love her like a sister, and I wish her well in her endeavors. But Teddy is badly mistaken about one thing, at least, that she holds firmly, which is that God is not done with me, and she believes that I am going to return to the faith. Now, I ride an e-scooter that goes upwards of 40 to 45 miles an hour. So I might get the kind of brain damage that would allow me to return to the faith. And considering that I only wear a 20-mile-an-hour helmet, this is a possibility. Also, I'm legally blind. I love my scooter. You're not taking that away from me. But it would require that for me to buy into any form of Christianity that has demons in it. That's how incoherent the doctrine of demons is. You have to get it out. And there are maybe one or two faith-saving ways to do it. I think that what the Christian has to do is say, yes, the Bible, the New Testament talks about demons, but it's metaphorical. In the same way that, the bar bet between God and Satan is a metaphor. Don't ask me how it's a metaphor. It doesn't matter. Kind of like Eve and the serpent in the garden is just allegory. I think they have to allegorize all demons and the devil. I think that there are credible ways that Christians could talk about these things and negative influences on human beings and human propensity to do bad things to other humans. I think there is a way that they can talk about that using demonology as a metaphor. And I could get behind that. I think there's a universe where I could say, literally, okay, well, that makes sense. But as long as demons are literal, there is no hope. There's no chance of a coherent Christianity. One of the reasons there is no chance for coherence for me is that there is an ancient war, and God has an ancient foe. But God is all-powerful, and his ancient foe is nobody compared to him. How can there be a war? It's like Brian said, it's like a boxing match between him and Mike Tyson. There will be a millisecond between the starting bell and his head hitting the mat. There is no war. And yet God has an ancient foe and a war. We can't have that kind of incoherence if you want people to get on board without regarding themselves as mad. So I would say that the first thing that Christians can do, and the most important things that Christians can do, is to start talking about demons. And indeed, it would be healthy for you as an individual to think about demons as allegories and metaphor. And I think that there are credible literary ways to do that and still save a kind of Christianity. That's my offer. Anyone else?
I think you only get part way there with that, David, because at some point you have to address the stories in the Gospels and elsewhere in the Bible, and those stories are written in the same style or in the same way or with the same intent as the impressive acts of Jesus. So just one example, Jesus casting the demons into the pigs that went over the cliff. That story is not written as an allegory. That story is not written as a parable. That story is written as Jesus actually did that, in the same way that Jesus actually rose from the dead. And so you can't say that story of the demons going into the pigs and going over the cliff was fictional, is a fictionalized edition, or was meant as something else, because as soon as you go down that road, you open up a big wide door that says there are other parts of the Bible that you're allowed to doubt too. So I think the Christian is in a very uncomfortable position where some of those stories involving demons need to be answered and need to be taken seriously and not written away. So I think there, and also when you read other parts of the Bible, you've got this whole narrative of Satan and his minions, whatever label you want to attach to them. Their existence, according to the Bible, is just as real as God and angels. So you have to come up with a way of explaining it as them being actual real entities that exist in some way or other. So you have to have that point, whether or not you accept in today's world that those beings actually interact with the everyday. I think if you're going to say that God does miracles in the everyday, which pretty much every Christian believes, I was told by a Christian only this weekend just gone that an incident that he was involved in, he is convinced that God saved him from a worse incident than it really could be. So Christians who I view as sensible, mature, head screwed on right Christians still affirm God's action in the world today. And I think as soon as you go down the road of saying, yes, God does affirmative action in the world today, you've got to also answer the question, well, can that also be true about Satan and demons? And if you're going to say, yes, God and maybe angels too interact in the world today, then you need to say, well, the Satan and his demons are also capable of acting in the world today. And if you're going to say one, but not the other, but yet in the Bible, it was true, and in the Bible, those things happened, you need to explain why today is different and why it's okay for God and angels and why it's not okay for demons. And it's not just you being rational, you're being irrational, so you need to explain it. And I think the only way to get there is theologically, I think the only way to get there theologically is Jesus' death on the cross locked the demons into hell and they can't escape from there. I don't really see any other theological way to get out of it. And if you're not going to take that theologically, then you're either being untrue to the Bible or you're being really unrealistic about today's world.
I see your objection, but I would ask you then about the necromancer. There was a man who had a servant woman who could commune with the dead, a necromancer, and either Paul or Peter encountered him, and he cast the spirit out of her. So then if we take your approach that demons were done away with Jesus rose, well, we've got a new strain of demons, and they're still doing the same kind of work in the book of Acts. Either that or necromancy is real. So
I would, if there's only the one account, I think the easy way to get around that is just say it's written in the wrong time period and it happens at another point in time, and it's just moved there because of how the Bible was put together.
fine. Okay. So both Matt and I have posed some options and have shot them down.
I mean,
Would
they're
anyone
nonsense,
else like to
obviously.
pose an option that we can shoot down?
But what are you trying to do here? Because if it's to make it make sense,
Yes,
do you want it to?
I want to find. I want to understand at least a little bit of my Christian friends, my parents, the people that in my life that I love. I want to look at them and not see them as nutters. I want to think that there is a way of thinking about this coherently, and at the moment, I cannot.
You can't make it be coherent, but it's perfect. It's perfect just the way it is. It's ambiguous, it's nefarious, it's dark, you can't see it. It puts people in a gullible state of uncertainty, it's suggestible. It works brilliantly. The evidence is everything. What more do you want? It's a perfect system. If you want people to believe in it and to have that view, then I wouldn't change anything. It's right. It's just perfect as it is. But if you want it to make sense, no, got no idea.
Brian?
Yeah, in thinking about this task, it kind of calls into mind the theology of somebody like Thomas Ord, who says that God can't do everything. And I really think you need some strain of that theology in order to make this work, because either God is unable to stop the demon, not have the demons exist in the first place, or cast them out or defeat them or eliminate them. He can't do these things. Or he could, but he needs them. He's happy to have them. They're just supernatural versions of Judas who ratted Jesus out. They're supernatural versions of Pontius Pilate and the Romans who executed Jesus. They are pawns in a game that God has sanctioned, that God has created.
Let me steal
and everybody's got their role to play.
Let me steel man your argument a little bit, because I've talked to Thomas Ord, and I think what he would actually say is God loves the demons too. But more importantly, to keep them from doing bad things to humans, he can't do it unilaterally. He needs your help. So if you want to stop the negative influence of demons in your life, you need to work with him in order to do that. So it's a cooperative thing. So that's exactly the sort of thing that Thomas Ord has said and would say on a matter like demons. But God loves, if you think that's kind of nutbags, God loves cancer cells. God doesn't kill cancer cells either.
Oh Lordy.
Right, but so David, I think you're right. I mean, I remember listening to the show with him and reading his stuff. The problem is you stick one finger in the hole in the dam over here, and you open up another one on the other side of the wall. So now you've got a God who can't do so many things. So now you can't rely on omnipotence to explain, how he's able to even create the universe in the first place. I mean, what kind of a God can't do something as simple as preventing one cancer cell from multiplying, right? So I feel like his theology makes sense of evil in some ways, but it's just it's you're robbing Peter to pay off Paul. And, I which is why ultimately I'm no strain of Christian, because I don't think you can square these circles no matter which way you go.
So I opted to metaphor out the demons. Matt opted to crucify out the demons. Brian opted to Ord out God. And
I'm keeping them.
Sarah likes them just the way they
in love
are.
with the demons. She likes them just the way
Andrew,
don't go changing.
What ingredient
Try to
would
please
you?
me.
What ingredient would you add to this soup?
What would I add to this? How do I make this make sense? And how do I deal with the Christians in my life who are in my immediate and extended family who actually believe in demons and demon possession, and think that a lot of this world is explained by the inexplicable acts of supernatural beings? How do I square that? By recognizing that in most things, we all want the same thing. We want a world where we can trust the people around us. We want a world where we can trust each other, where where we can share a meal together and no one gets hurt. The way I deal with Christians that believe in demon possession is by recognizing that they're human and that all of their beliefs are not things that I have to explain. The thing that I do have to do, if I want them in my life, is find the place where they're human and find the things that we want together, and accept that some people have a place in their heart for religion that I don't have. And while I think they're flawed, there are plenty of places where I'm flawed that they accept. And I am willing to accept those flaws with the sorts of provisos that I've talked about in the past, right? You can believe in your demons. You can't teach the nonsense to my children. You can believe in demons, but don't expect me to go along with it. So how I deal with demons is actually by recognizing that I'm as human as they are.
Okay, so let's start wrapping this up. I still have a full day's work to do, and so I'm gonna do some of that. Let's go in this order. Andrew, Brian, Sarah, Matt, and me, because that's the reverse order as it appears on the screen. Try to keep your comments pithy. And Andrew.
I don't. People know by now. I don't do pith. Did it? Okay. So if you want me to believe in demons, here's what you have to do. It's pretty easy. First of all, you have to be able to tell me why Hugh Ross is right or wrong, or why the Catholics are right or wrong. So the Catholics have limits on demons. Hugh Ross doesn't. Which one of them is right, and how do I know? It's a pretty easy test in the sense that we ask that kind of question all the time, right? And then if you have some good reason to think that one of them is right and one of them is wrong, tell me what test I can perform independently to verify the conclusion that you have. Because Sarah is kind of saying all of this stuff sounds pretty good in some ways, right? It's perfect as it is. And I think in some ways she's right. Certainly a lot of people buy it. So the question is, what can you do to get me to buy it? And if the answer is we've done all we can do, okay, well, I don't buy it. we can just move on. But I think we do have a responsibility to each other to show how to get to the heart of a claim. Other than I read it in that really cool book over there, and I just think the book's right. I don't just think books are right. I don't. And your book that talks about demons, I think it's dead wrong. So you got to do better than that. And that's really all I have to say about demons. I'm utterly unconvinced. And all you have to do to convince me is verify your claim in the normal course of events, like you would try to convince me of any other thing. And it's not harder than that. It's not mysterious. It's not unusual. I'm not applying a higher burden of proof to demons than I would to any other kind of claim. Just get me to where you are in the normal course of events. That's it.
Brian.
Yeah, I think Andrew said a lot of the things that I would say. So just to try to add on a little bit, things things aren't true because
Brian,
they're in the Bible. But things in the Bible are verified as true. So if you're coming to me with the Bible for evidence that that demons are real, then you've lost the game before you've started. You know, what evidence would I need to know that you have a brother, David, or that, you know, again, Matthew's got a mailman, or Sarah has a best friend? Show me the person. Introduce me to them. Put them in front of me. Have me shake their hand. That's how I get to know that entities are real. If you want me to know that you have an apple, put it in my hand. So I don't get this dancing around why things exist and why they think that pointing to a book is going to get us to where existence is demonstrated. I mean, unfortunately it's just par for the course with regards to all these spiritual and metaphysical claims. So if you're going to make a proof or make a philosophical argument, but then you don't have any reference in reality to point to, then all you've got is a bunch of words that are if-then statements, and you still haven't actually demonstrated existence. So you're going to have to bring it into the demonstrable and the verifiable.
You know, you can't say demonstrable without demon. Sarah?
I'm going to say with, if you're deep in this worldview, don't give yourself too much of a hard time. It does take a bit of time for the scales to fall off, as it were. You can change. It can be done. You can drop those perception filters. That's all they are. They're all the things that you look at life through, and you can live in a more integrated and simpler way, really, without piling on supernatural claim on supernatural claim. And just remember the fact that it is nebulous and ambiguous and is almost the truth of the claims, and the experiences that people have kind of go through certain gatekeepers, almost like shamans, that just give you anecdotal evidence on this. Isn't an indication that it's something mysterious and supernatural and unseen. It's a very good indication it probably isn't there. So test the claims and try and look for consistency. And I think you'll soon find that you'll go the way of maybe more progressive Christians who start talking about, well, hell is on earth, really, and people's the terrible things in people's lives are more just. You can use these metaphors to say they have lots of their demons that they're trying to exercise, and you can go down that route if you want, but the literal understanding of a demon will soon drop away with a bit of probing.
Matt.
Yeah. I won't add to the difficulties around how you demonstrate demons or how they interact. That's been covered. Here in the UK, we have a system of affirming identification. So if you take a photo to be put in your passport or in your driving license, something like that, there are people there are authorized people you go to, authorized professions you go to sign the back of the photo, so that when the passport office gets this, somebody from X profession has validated this person's identity, and because this is a respected profession, we're going to take this identity. And so you get things like doctors, lawyers, or including that, pastors,
clergy
are included on that list of respectable, truth-telling, not prone to bending list of professions. So that's the setup. So imagine this somewhat fictional scenario. You're a pastor, you've got this respect. You claim that you used to have asthma caused by a demon, but it has been healed. So you don't declare it on your insurance form. You end up having a really bad incident, and you end up in hospital as a result of that incident. And the doctor tries to give you medicine, and you say, no, you don't need to give me medicine. You just need to read out this incantation and the asthma will disappear. You then try to claim for the costs of that medication and that treatment to your insurance company. And they go, you haven't declared this. Your insurance is validated because you haven't been paying the correct premium price for what you've declared.
Okay.
Real world applications.
I think there's so many directions I thought about going, but I'll just go with this one. Matt, I believe the incantation you were trying to find was
Get stuffed.
all right. So this is here's the thing, though. Get stuffed is insufficient for everything. And I think this is where the seriousness of this issue comes in for me. They're people with real problems. I've known these people. I've been to church with these people. Thank goodness I've never been one of these people, but I could have been. They have real problems. And their solution, their first line solution, is to rebuke the demon. And some things can't be rebuked. I would say nothing can, but certainly the reasonable person would agree with me that some things can't be rebuked. You are married to a brute of a man, and he is coming at you and he's going to hit you again. You cannot rebuke that away. You are going to get hit and you're going to get hurt. And if you keep trying to rebuke the demon, you're going to get killed. There's no demon there to rebuke. And there's no armor that's going to help you in that situation. You are a man and you are struggling in your marriage and you're working late and it's the classic situation. And, you know, the secretary or, you know, whatever the story goes is working late with you. And you believe that you are all prayed up and you feel a tinge of lust. You can't rebuke that. You're going to have to recognize your humanity and alter your behavior and your work schedule because you're going to have an affair and you're going to blow your marriage. That's not rebukable. There's no magic for that. You've got a little bit of a cough. And yes, you went to church the whole time and you never wore a mask since 2020. You didn't put on a mask, damn it. The evil spirit of COVID isn't going to get you. You've rebuked it. You can't rebuke that. There is no real asthma. You can't rebuke asthma. And if you are caught out without your inhaler and you have a serious enough attack, you are going to fucking die. That's what this gets you. And so for the love of God or Satan or the angels or the apostles, you've got to do something with this doctrine of demons. Because if you ever hope to reach someone like me, you're never going to be able to do it with that on the table. But forget about me. Worry about yourself and your family and your job and your marriage, your health and your friends, and start taking responsibility and putting in the real work and recognizing the real problems and stop rebuking imaginary enemies. Okay, that's all I've got. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Andrew, Brian, Sarah, Matt, Darren, you're here in spirit. Thank you all. And we will see you all next time.